It has never been easier to snowball a game of Valorant. And this game has always been pretty momentum based due to having dueling economies with both the ultimate economy and the gun economy. Teams have gotten better and better at using their ultimates to kind of take their advantages and press them into more and more dominant halves. It's gotten to a point where we have people like TMV suggesting that we actually change the entire game's economy just to stop this snowballing pattern. But that's a little bit too drastic for me, and I want to look at some statistics and suggest a different solution that is a little bit more focused on how people actually play the game. So, right here, you can see the conversion rate of the anti eco rounds after winning pistol for the entirety of stage one. And one big number that's going to stand out is that the global rate was 87.8%. So if you win a pistol, you have an almost 90% chance to win the next round, at least so far in stage one for professional teams. Now, that is a very, very high number. And a lot of that number is coming from the fact that you have a huge economic imbalance going into the second round. What's crazy to me is that teams are now so afraid of the snowball from the other team that they are playing rounds like this. And obviously, we had a strategy similar to this on Abyss, which kind of makes sense because of how big the map is. But seeing teams do this on a map like Split, where you very easily can just gamble to rotate and go for some sort of damage play. And it's examples like that Envy round that really made me want to start talking about this because I think that a lot of teams are playing the second round horribly. And I think that especially if you lose the pistol and sort of give up on the second round, you are almost creating a self-perpetuating cycle of a snowball happening against your team. And if you look at the data, and this is a graphic that I created while I was digging into these numbers, if you win the pistol, it is often worth 1.78 rounds. And that shakes out to the one round that you get from winning the pistol and a 0.78 round advantage going forward for that half. Now, if you convert the second round, meaning that you win the pistol and then you win the second round, that second round is also worth 1.72 rounds, meaning that you get the one round from winning that round, which should be almost free based on how most teams are playing their ecos. And then those alt orbs and that momentum that you get is still worth 0.72 rounds. So that is a huge, huge advantage. That's worth almost the same amount as the pistol, just in alt orbs and economic momentum. Now, if you are able to steal that second round, meaning you lose the pistol, and then you are able to eco the team, it is worth 1.57 rounds. And trust me, we're going to look at some examples of this, but first I want to look at a few more numbers. So right here, you can see that this is the average rounds 1.5 in stage one if a team lost the pistol and lost the anti-eco as expected, right? This is an event that is going to happen almost 90% of the time when you lose the pistol. Teams that are losing both pistol and the eco are averaging 4 rounds per half, just over 4 rounds. And if you split this out for attack and defense, it's essentially the same. So that is not great. And if you contrast this with teams that are able to steal that second round after losing the pistol, you can see that they get almost a 6-6 half on average if you are able to steal that momentum back. If we split this out for attack and defense, it's even more stark. If you are able to flip the momentum on attack, you're more than winning the half on average. Now, obviously, this is hard to do. It's a tough ask to win a round where you are massively economically disadvantaged. You have less armor, you have less utility, you have worse weapons. You're trying not to ruin like your third round as well. So there's a lot of things that go into encouraging teams to sort of give up on that second round to invest on hopefully flipping the momentum on the third round. But the numbers are showing that even if you do that, most of the time you're setting yourself up for failure. And it's not just the eco rounds that people are playing poorly, it's the anti eco rounds as well. I mean, look at this. This is the top teams from each region going to Masters London right now. And the first thing that'll jump out to you is that on average, these teams are better by about 4% than the rest of the world at playing their anti-ecos. This is the anti-eco conversion win rate. So after winning the pistol, this is how often they convert that second round. You got teams that are at 100% or very, very close to 100%. But you also have a third of the teams that are below average. And these are the best teams in the world, supposedly, going to this event. How are teams so bad at this round where you have everything going in your favor? And so I'm going to show you guys some examples now of how teams are messing up these anti-eco rounds, and also how teams can be playing the eco rounds to be a lot more dangerous to make the anti-ecos harder to convert. And one of the teams that's going to show up quite a bit in this video is PaperX, because they are one of the biggest offenders of totally messing up their second rounds after winning the pistol and throwing away the momentum, especially on the defensive side of the map. So in this first example, PaperX has bought up pretty heavily after winning the pistol round on Corrode. You can see that they have a Bulldog, they've got 2 Spectres, a Judge, a Ghost, 3 full armors, 2 half, and they have a full utility kit. On the other side, we've got Nongshim with a Bandit, 2 Bandits actually, a Sheriff, and a Shorty. So let's see what goes wrong for PaperX. We're going to see Nongshim smoke off middle to deny the long line of sight and contact up into short, where there is a Judge. So this looks a little bit rough for them, but I'm going to pause this here in a second, right after we watch Something and Defy go down. And I want to just highlight a couple of things. When you are a team on an eco, there are basically 2 advantages that you have. Number 1 is the element of surprise. So if you do something a little bit different, that is one area that you can have a bit of an advantage. And the other area is that you are incentivized to do something crazy with your positioning. And what I mean by that is, if you're on equal footing economically with the other team, a lot of the time you're not really incentivized to just kind of like ball up as 5 and run at them, because oftentimes one piece of utility or an operator, or just running into 2 people that have a good crossfire can completely end your round. But on eco rounds, you're not supposed to win anyway. And so you're actually incentivized to sort of lean into a numbers advantage, especially when you're on the attack side of things, because the defense still has to defend the entire map. And if they are splitting up to defend the entire map, and you have 5 people all going into one tiny little place, yes, you might run into a Judge, but a lot of the time you're going to be able to overwhelm the spread out players. And you can see, if we actually back this up just a little bit, that right now, PaperX has 2 players here playing passively in B. They have 1 player here playing passively in middle. They have 1 player here playing kind of aggressively in short. And they have 1 player here playing kind of passively on A. So if Nongshim were to go to any of these lanes as 5, they would have a massive numbers advantage, whether they went 5 through A main, 5 through middle, 5 through short, or 5 to B. In all of those cases, they're in a 5-on-1, 5-on-2 type of situation. So you can actually get a numbers advantage a lot of the time on eco rounds if you play together. The first thing I think PaperX is doing kind of wrong here is that they don't have any information except for in passive spots, because they haven't used any of their recon utility. You can see that Envy has both of his dogs up and the eye. They don't have any deep info lines. It's obviously a little bit hard to do that on B because this is a very dangerous corner. On A, you could get a little bit more early information, and Nongshim did a good job smoking off sort of like the longest, easiest line of information as well. But PaperX doesn't have any idea where Nongshim is early on in the round, which is allowing them to get caught very, very separated. And so, because they don't use any info utility early, because they're all playing passively except for 1 player, they're putting themselves in a situation where it is very easy for Nongshim to find an opportunity to overwhelm one of the lanes where they are not very strong. And that's exactly what's going to happen. And a lot of the times in these situations where a player does get kind of isolated by a group running them down on eco, you end up in a situation exactly like this, where they realize, uh-oh, our teammate is in trouble. And so another player who is also relatively separated because they're trying to hold too much of the map is too far away to actually help. And so we see that the Vice, kind of desperately tries to come out and swing, and ends up basically feeding away his life and giving up the entire A side of the map as a result. This is something that PaperX does a lot. They do this a lot where one player will get caught, another player will try to salvage the situation by swinging in to try and, get a couple of kills to make it even, and they will also die and they will lose the entire side of the map and then, allow the attacking team to suddenly upgrade weapons, get the spike down and get into post plant positions. And so you can see here as Nongshim goes into the post plant, another thing that PaperX is doing, in my opinion, wrong here is they still are not doing anything together. They have one player here, one player here, one player here, and they are all moving individually. Remember, the one advantage that the Eco team has is numbers. And PaperX is playing exactly into their hand by not grouping up at any point and all just trying to sort of take their own individual timings and plays to try and salvage the round. And it is not going to go very well because Envy gets picked before his teammate can even come help him. And Forsaken is going to get picked without being able to make any noise for Jing. And just like that, you now have the team that should have had, again, remember, like an almost 90% chance of winning this round in a pretty much unwinnable situation, facing a judge that is bunkered on site, upgraded weapons, and 3 players. Okay, let's do it again. Final game of Master Santiago on Abyss. They go into their anti-eco with an outlaw. Great. They have full armors on a bunch of their players. They've got one sheriff, a guardian, bulldog, and a specter. And you can see that Nongshim has 2 bandits and 3 classics. So Nongshim's not even really trying very hard to win this round. They've barely given themselves any firepower at all.
Get pretty aggro right into this outlaw. That dart, though, doesn't clear him.
Something able to find the first shot, cannot connect with the second.
This right now, as it currently stands, should probably be like 97% conversion, maybe even higher. So the fact that PaperX is about to lose this round is kind of unbelievable. And right now, I actually do want to kind of give them props because they have 3 players grouped. So this is a strong area of the map for them. They have the wall in middle that should just kind of give them safe information. And they have some aggressive information and line here with their waylay. And this is okay because the waylay actually can escape by dashing back onto the site. So I don't actually mind them being this separated. All PaperX has to do is nothing. If they just all stand exactly where they were for about 45 seconds, they will win this round again, almost 100% of the time.
So waiting for this push. Ivy would love to have him swing into him. Barrel stuff with that bandit. Devi might just be giving him that opportunity.
Even though there's a wall there, that should get the information, even though they've got the Yoru who has the deep line with the outlaw, for some reason, Devi feels like he needs to go looking for information, and he peeks out and he dies. And now we have a serious problem because not only is there a gun upgrade, but the entire setup is cooked because now there's a giant gap where a player can go into spawn and go either direction. And PaperX has no idea where any of these players are. You're going to see this drone come out to try and sort of figure out, are they trying to rehit A? But this is too late. Now you're in a situation where your aggressive player who should be able to escape safely back to site does not have the safe fallback that he's supposed to have because now there could be a player flanking in behind, which is exactly what's happening.
They're in hand. Prince is still hovering around A main as Forsaken. Oh! He ends up getting red. Played it too patiently in Extros. Cleans him up with the classic. Suddenly Nongshim. The player advantage.
Okay, I'm sorry, PaperX fans. We're going to see one more round from your team. And this is yet another defensive anti-eco round where they have a huge economic advantage. Obviously, they're way up in this map. So this is a pretty easy cleanup, you would think. They have a judge on something. They've got 2 bulldogs. They've got a guardian. Got a bunch of armors. And the first thing that's a little bit worrying to me is that they have just a completely solo jet with a judge on A. This seems a little crazy to me. And they're also making an aggressive fighting play into this tiny choke point on B, which, I mean, sure, I guess this is maybe a place where you could, mow them down if they're rushing you. And so what's going to end up happening here is we can see that T1 gets the orb and then they immediately fall back. And all of this noise has now caused them, because they made an aggressive play on B, to just start sprinting out of B. Now, I don't really mind this because in reaction to all the noise A, you can definitely take this extra space. So you have like so much information about what's going on the map and you have them completely contained on A. But watch what Paper X does next.
The round.
In reaction to this, A noise, they just start sprinting down middle,
End up doing
full footsteps. So this middle player can hear them running down. And also look at the spacing. They had 3 people here, but then they decided to move one player here and just continue double pushing behind. So if T1 were to just run back at them this way, this is a 5-on-2. And yes, these players are, potentially in positions to help the fight. So it's not like a clean 5-on-2, but these guys are just running blind into what could be a very bad numbers advantage fight.
End up doing, meanwhile, big, loud push down towards sand. Izu able to find one. Munchkin with another bit of high Envy also traded back.
Guns, though.
Get into a 3v3, but can they reach those weapons? It's a bit whiffy here.
And the thing that happens when you start messing up these anti-eco rounds is that it's like severe mental damage because you know that you are not supposed to lose these rounds. Okay, so now I just wanted to go back to this eco round win rate for a second because there's definitely a few standout teams, and one team in particular is way above everybody else in terms of stealing the momentum back after losing the pistol. And I want to highlight T1 here because they do something that not a lot of other teams do on eco rounds, which is they have a plan. I feel like most teams' plan on eco rounds is like buy a couple of sheriffs, wander around the map, die, and go next. But T1 almost always has some little idea of how they can give themselves a little bit of an edge. Look at this round against G2 at Master Santiago and take a look at their buy. They have a light armor and a stinger on their ISO. And everybody else is just on class except for one bandit. So they're not ruining their economy. They're all going to be able to buy rifles next round. But they have an idea. They have a slight win condition, which is that they're taking their character that is very good at snowballing around and can take one fight and potentially more than one fight with an advantage with his shield, and they're giving him the ability to win this round.
Decent amount of struggles trying to make that stinger work against this G2 squad.
They instantly deny information to the long lines. This is always a good thing. You saw this with Nongshim on the Corrode map. You want to deny information and force the other team that has long range weapon advantage to come to you, because now these guys have to come up and clear this. Otherwise, they could be walked up into short. So deny information. Do not give away what the plan is right away.
Got firepower across the board. So he's looking for a catch there at A main. It does allow for Leaf to scale all the way forward with that Marshall in hand.
And deny information. They smoke this up to try and isolate somebody who might be in here. Maybe he has a judge on this corner. They dart, they pop the shield, and they run in.
Double tap shield now going to be popped. Meteor immediately working his way through up into window.
Close range fights favor them potentially. And it's just it's a simple idea, but it's a good idea. It's not just throwing away their lives and trying to get to the rifle round as quickly as possible.
Swinging here on the check, and Baby Bay maybe seeing gun barrel a pixel out of place. Is very suspicious about this.
They deny information. They stop moving around and they just hold this area because they're like, well, our first little plan didn't work, but we still are grouped up here. So if the other team wants to come try and, re-clear this to figure out what's going on in the round.
For sure. You give up this space with this comp sometimes.
Bit of a slight inexperience moment from Baby Bay playing the chamber. He could be holding this exact same line basically from here in his teleport range so he doesn't get run down, but he gets a little curious, and this is what's going to happen. When teams don't know exactly what's going on in a round, they tend to make small little mistakes, and sometimes that's all it really takes is just a small little mistake.
They're just going to be sat here hoping and praying that someone comes swinging into this to hand them a weapon, but Baby Bay not looking likely to happen.
They have one person kind of holding their flank, hoping that there's going to be some sort of reaction when they show that there's a bunch of people here. So this whole thing is very well orchestrated from T1.
Be a flash
And
out of
then
here,
they're
you would
going
think, for
to
Buzz.
get ready. They're going to smoke again. They're smoking off sort of the help that could be coming. And they're going to use their one little piece of utility that they have, which is a Yoru flash.
Has it. They spot him. They take him down low, and he can't get the weapon out fast enough. Valen, however, still close by. Not going to be caught by that one, but Buzz with that Bulldog's able to find a kill. Izu finding Trent at the same time. As Jogamo drops off back plat. Molly going to be layered in, but he gets completely overwhelmed and surrounded, and suddenly it is just Lee for the Marshal remaining.
And I know I said I was done with Paper X rounds, but I have one more to show. This is mostly because Furia does something awesome here. So they lose the pistol in a very close map, and Furia, I think this is probably partially an anti-play. Like, they must know kind of how Paper X wants to play these anti-ecos on this map, because this is a pretty risky buy, but also a very, very cool round. So first of all, we're going to see 2 Outlaws purchased by the attackers. And on top of that, they're investing a full armor so that Koala Noob can take potentially a completely even fight with full armor. And then they have a second outlaw that's going to be glass cannon. So this is a very, very big investment into their eco round, their quote unquote eco round. But watch how much impact it's possible to have if you just get a little creative with your eco rounds. Okay, right there, we just had a ton of stuff happen. And Koala Noob instantly peeks out in a long with his full armor and outlaw and tags up Envy. This is something that Paper X does all the time on their eco rounds, which is they will just try to do as much chip damage as possible with sheriffs or a solo marshal. They'll just try and spam you, spam you, spam you, chip you, chip you, chip you. So you become afraid of peeking into them because you know that you're one shot at that point. And this is exactly what's happening here. Walanoob tags up Envy. Envy now has to play differently because he's one shot to the outlaw that he knows is available. And he's even potentially one shottable by a classic. So he has to play way differently. And the second thing that happened is this sort of secret outlaw peeks out right after the first one and catches the half armor player with a Vandal playing plat. So, I mean, Paper X is not expecting 2 outlaws, that's for sure. Nobody does this. And so that's why it's so cool. And that's why it works. Remember, that's the first thing that you have as an advantage in these eco rounds is the element of surprise. And Furia does this perfectly. So they do some chip damage, they get a kill, and Koala Noob is going to burn down and die because he gets C's naded or C's mollied here. But they're even. And they're even better than even because now Paper X is panicking, right? They've lost a player C, so they've lost C control. They're low damage A. They know there's 2 outlaws on the field. And this should be a pretty easy recovery of this outlaw for Viper. So there's still going to be 2 outlaws available to Furia that they can continue to do chip damage with. And so now off of that initial contact, Furia is just going to speed up into C. And again, I think this is probably an anti-read because especially at this time in this meta, one of the things that Paper X always did is they would put something on an island on these anti-ecos because he was playing Yoru and he could just teleport out to safety. So I'm sure that Furia recognizes that if they see something on an anti-eco, very good chance that he's alone. And you can see that Paper X is scrambling to try and recover from the setup that they're in. And Forsaken is going to run in by himself to try and save this round. And he actually gets a kill, but this is just a pure chaos round. And the last thing that you want when you're on anti-ego is chaos. You want control of the map. You want control of the sight lines. You want controlled fights where you can use your gun advantage. But that is not what is happening right now. Forsaken does get the kill, but he also gets tagged down by the outlaw to 18. So now we have 2 players that are low. We also have a half armor here. So 3 players that are one shot to the outlaw. And there's 2 outlaws for Furia. And you're going to see exactly how it's going to play out here. Forsaken comes out, just misses his timing on the peak there. The rest of Paper X tries to flood in, and just like that, classic one-shots Envy, who is tagged down by the outlaw earlier. Forsaken goes down to the outlaw, and now we're in a 2-on-2 where one player is one-shottable, and he is isolated on site because the Phoenix is desperately trying to catch up to the play. So what's going to happen? Devi is trying to control the site. He knows that he kind of has an advantage here for a minute. Comes out, takes a fight, gets double teamed, and just like that, Furia is now in control of the round. So This one, I would not even say is necessarily on PaperX. It's on Furia's really good read and creativity to come up with a plan that allows them to steal the momentum back after losing the pistol. And so, yes, the data does support it. The game is very snowbally, and it's getting even more snowbally as teams get better at pressing their advantage, and the meta favors playing aggressively and fast. But I really still think that there's so much leverage to be had in these second rounds. And I think that most teams are completely disregarding how important this round is. In fact, I would almost say that the second round is more important than the pistol in the long run on how these games are playing out.